potential verbs. Today we're learning about potential verbs to say a sentence like, I can speak Japanese. Alright, let's start by learning how to conjugate them. As always, the conjugation rules are different depending on the verb group. If you want to review how to identify the verb group, please watch the video for lesson 14. First, group 3 verbs. You just have to memorize する or します in a must form changes to できる できる 来る or 来ます changes to 来られる 来られる Colloquially, this la is very often omitted, so just 来れる It's still considered grammatically incorrect, but it's widely used in everyday conversation. I never say 来られる I always say just 来れる Next, group 2 verbs. Group 2 verbs always end with る in their dictionary form. To make the potential form, replace the る with られる. If it's the must form, just change ます to られる. 食べる or 食べます. 食べられる. 教える or 教えます. 教えられる. あげる or あげます. あげられる. And the la is very often omitted in everyday conversation. Technically, it's grammatically incorrect, but people omit them anyways. Lastly, group 1 verbs. In their dictionary form, group 1 verbs always end with the u vowel sound. To make the potential form, replace the u sound with the e sound plus る. If it's the must form, just change the e sound plus ます to the e sound plus る. 行く or 行きます. 行ける 飲む or 飲みます. 飲める 買う or 買います. 買える Or for group 1 verbs, to make the potential form from the dictionary form, simply move 1 row down on the hiragana chart. To make the potential form from the must form, simply move 2 rows down. So this is the summary of how to make the potential verbs. Again, these las are often omitted in everyday conversation. And if you want to speak politely, you just change る to ます. Alright, now let's practice using it in a sentence. I go to school by bus. バスで学校に行く. I can go to school by bus. バスで学校に行ける。行ける。バスで学校に行ける. Politely, 行けます. Now, a few notes about potential verbs. Note 1. When you use potential verbs, the particle を should be replaced with が. I speak Japanese. 日本語を話す. I can speak Japanese. 話せる. Now this を should be replaced with が. 日本語が話せる. 日本語が話せる. That's what a lot of textbooks teach you. However, in practice, を is still commonly used in both conversation and writing. You'd often hear Japanese people say 日本語を話せる instead of 日本語が話せる. So this rule is not strict at all. But if it's with the potential verb できる, can do, now generally you want to use ができる. をできる is not common. For example, can play tennis. テニスをできる is a little bit unnatural. テニスができる is way more common. Note 2. As we learned in lesson 18, verb in the dictionary form plus ことができる also means can do the verb. So to mean I can speak Japanese, you can also say 日本語を話すことができる。日本語を話すことができる。ノート3 there are some verbs that don't have the potential verb form. For example, わかる to understand, 生まれる to be born, 疲れる to get tired. These verbs don't have the potential verb form. What do these verbs have in common? They all describe things that happen involuntarily. Like you don't intentionally understand something. You don't decide to be born or get tired. You can't really control these actions. On the other hand, 食べる to eat, 飲む to drink, 泳ぐ to swim. They all have the potential verb form. These are actions you do intentionally. You have control over them. And if you don't decide to do them, they simply won't happen. These actions you do intentionally and with control are called 意思動詞, volitional verbs. And these verbs that describe things that happen without intention or control are called 無意思動詞, non-volitional verbs. And you cannot make the potential verb form for 無意思動詞, non-volitional verbs. I picked easy examples here, but this can be really tricky. Because even わかる to understand, you can argue that understanding something feels intentional, especially when you're focusing really hard to understand something. But in Japanese, わかる is the act of understanding itself. You can focus or study to understand something, but the actual moment of understanding happens involuntarily and unintentionally. So yeah, it's pretty tricky. But we'll go deeper into this topic in lesson 36. So don't worry too much about it for now. Just keep in mind that some verbs don't have the potential verb form. That's good enough for now. Lastly, ノート4. Potential verbs can be further conjugated. 行く、行ける、行けます、行けない、行けて、行けた. The reason I've been calling them potential verbs rather than the potential form is that they're sort of standalone verbs, which means they can be further conjugated into different forms. And here's the thing. All potential verbs are group 2 verbs, and they conjugate as such. Regardless of whether the original verb is group 1, group 2, or group 3, all potential verbs are group 2. Alright, let's practice. Let's practice! This is going to be difficult, so feel free to pause the video if you need to. How'd you say, you have to be able to speak English? He can dance and is good at singing. If you could come, I'll be happy. To speak English is 英語を話す. The potential verb is 話せる. 英語が話せる. And a night form of 話せる is, because it's a group 2 verb, 話せない. 英語が話せなければならない. 英語が話せなければならない. He dances is 彼はダンスをする. The potential verb is できる. ダンスができる. And the tet form of できる is できて. 彼はダンスができて歌が上手です。彼はダンスができて歌が上手です。You will come is 〇〇さんが来る. And the potential verb of 来る is 来られる or just 来れる. And the top form of 来れる is 来れた. 〇〇さんが来れたら嬉しいです。〇〇さんが来れたら嬉しいです。Alright, that's all for today. 今日は以上です。今日も僕の動画を見てくれて本当にありがとうございました。じゃあまたね。バイバイ。